For more than 100 years, the hops from Goshi Farms have been adding aroma and bitterness to beer around the world. And today, it's harvest time. Let's hop to it. We're traveling the state to learn how people stay safe in their weird and wonderful jobs. I'm Corey Jenkins, and this is Oregon Odd Jobs. At Goshi Farms, they know a thing or two about hops. How to harvest them, how to process them, how to dry them, how to package them. And I don't know how to do any of it. So today, I was going to rely on the good folks at Goshi to teach me. This is Vice President Gail Goshi.
Hi there.
Good to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Tell us a little bit about Goshi Farms.
Oh, well, we're a hop farm. We've been doing it since 1904 when our grandparents planted the crop. So we're at 119 years of growing hops.
Well, my day was going to start out in the hops fields. Like all plants, hops start in the ground. Unlike all plants, they grow long bines, which are tender like vines that get trained to wrap around twine hanging from a trellis system. Throughout the spring and summer, the bines grow up the twine and produce flower cones, which are then harvested in August and September. Today was one of the last days of this year's harvest. The crews here had already been going for several weeks, 24 hours a day, to meet a fast approaching deadline. The harvest works like this. First, a tractor goes down the middle of the rows, and on the sides are what look like overgrown hedge trimmers, which chop the bines at the base. Then a truck shows up with a wide open trailer, followed by another tractor with its own trimmer, this one up in the air, cutting the tops of the bines, which then fall into the trailer. My workday started by joining the trailer crew. All right, time to work. As the bines were cut, our job was to guide them into the truck and prevent them from getting tangled with one another, while also trying to get an even distribution. The more in order the bines are on the truck, the easier and faster the processing would go later on. Once one trailer was full, it would head out, and soon enough, another would show up. And we'd do the job all over again. When that trailer was full, the truck would leave, and another would show up. You get the idea. Given that many of the employees at Goshi are indigenous to places like Mexico or Guatemala, some of their safety customs are different from what they are at Goshi. This is Isaias, and he explained the challenges of promoting safety across cultures.
La seguridad es un poquito complicado con nuestra gente. Ellos entienden sencillamente la costumbre que traen de allá. Sin pensar ellos se quitan los lentes, son felices trabajando, pero no es desobediencia, es la costumbre que traen de allá. Pero nos esforzamos diario, cambiar todo esto.
Cuando están trabajando en el calor, ¿qué te puedes hacer para la seguridad de tus trabajadores?
Las personas regularmente no quieren hablar, que ellos se sienten mal por el calor, ¿verdad? Porque en unas partes es castigado o los mandan a la casa. Pero nosotros aquí con Goshi tenemos comprensión. Entonces queremos que la gente, no solamente cuando hace mucho calor, puede ser que la gente a 70 ya sienta mucho calor.
Sí.
Entonces le damos confianza que ellos nos digan, me siento de esta manera y podemos darle un descanso o hacemos algo para que él mejore su físico. Es la idea de nosotros.
It was time to leave this crew to their work and follow the trucks back home. Here, where another crew awaited them. Their job was to separate out the bines in the trailer and hang them on hooks, which took the bines into the air, where they would eventually head into a room full of contraptions and conveyor belts that would strip the hops from the bines. Unfortunately for this crew, I was going to join them and slow them down considerably. After a few quick demonstrations, there was nothing to do but jump in. It was here where it started to become apparent why we tried to organize the bines as best we could out in the field. Instead of a tangled mess, everything was nicely laid out. Now, I was definitely slow to start, but eventually felt like I was getting the hang of it. I did notice, though, that the piles seemed to be shrinking slower than I expected. Little did I know that many of my bines were falling off somewhere along the line, which were then brought back to me over and over again. Eventually, to speed up the process, I was grateful to be given a helping hand. Thankfully, they took pity on me, and another crew member was ready with a bine whenever I needed one. Even with my lack of expertise, the truck did eventually empty, and headed back out to the fields to pick up another load.
It's all going so fast. A lot of non-verbal communication, and they're being very nice to me today.
With every load, there ended up a few remaining hops on the ground, but at Goshi, those don't get left behind, and they're swept into a belt under the floor, joining the rest of the hops in their journey. Next stop, the drying room. The moisture level in the hops starts at around 80%. In this room, they get it down to between 8 and 10% through a process of heated air being pumped in. How do they know when the hops are ready?
That decision was all made, all human, hand feel of how those cones felt.
Right.
That was a fabulous time to just feel the art of drying hops. But now we can do it with a program to have a little bit of automation and controls for the drying system.
Okay.
While feeling by hand used to be the tried and true technique, it's even more accurate to use a probe. But how do you put the probe out there without crushing the hops? With these handmade Goshi hop shoes. And here they are in action. Once the hops had the right amount of moisture, they followed a series of conveyor belts and ended up here.
That is one big pile of hops.
This is called the cooling room, and that's what they're doing. They're
Cooling.
They're just cooling for about 18 to 24 hours before they're compressed into the 200-pound bale.
Under the pile is a pipe with slits that were cut into it, which pumps cool air from below. When the hops are cooled enough, this giant mountain is slowly depleted over time as they are scooped up and transferred to a conveyor belt, leading to the bundling station. Here, the hops are compressed before being wrapped and bundled into 200-pound bales, each bale being sewn shut by hand. Rosalina had the unfortunate job of teaching me how to do it.
Por dentro?
How did it go? Well, let's just say sewing works a lot better if you keep the thread in the needle.
Seriously?
At this point, we felt it was better if I just watched. As Rosalina finished up that side, it was time to flip it over. How do you flip a 200-pound bale safely? Using a simple tool just like that.
Hey! All right!
Once sewn, it was time to stack this bale with the others and call it a day.
Well, that was a disaster. I'm so fired.
So what did we learn today? When teaching safety, it's important to consider cultural differences and have patience as employees grow accustomed to new practices. Team communication and pre-planning are essential tools to identify hazards before the work begins. And for a new employee, a helping hand goes a long way, not only to meet deadlines, but to stay safe as well.
With the harvest ending soon, these hops will be shipped to breweries around the world and right here in Oregon. So the next time you pour yourself a pint, raise a glass to the hardworking crew at Goshi Farms. We'll see you next time on Oregon Odd Jobs.